Hey there, Planeswalkers. I'm Eric, and this is Bane Alley Magic. And today we're talking about Rhys the Redeemed, which is a very powerful commander deck, and it involves token strategy. So, first, I'd like to talk a little bit about doing a token strategy deck. I think it is one of the most powerful strategies in Magic, and there are three main reasons why. But number one is that it's going wide, right? So going wide is, having lots of little creatures as opposed to one big tall creature, right? One giant creature. So as opposed to going tall, you're going wide. And whether it be 1v1 or commander, it is a very powerful strategy because you can easily block with one of your little guys, and they have a very hard time blocking your massive little guys which are coming at them. And there's of course lots of ways to chump block or to pump up the little guys, so they end up being lots of big guys. Another reason is that going with a token strategy means it's easy to rebuild if somebody board wipes or somebody destroys your creatures. Also, it's just pure card advantage, right? So you use one card, you end up getting 3 guys out of it, 5 guys out of it. I mean, who knows? Token strategies, you can get a lot of creatures out of just one card. So that's perfect card advantage right there. But also, if you think about it, I mean, if you only used one card to create 10 guys, and then someone else board wipes, right? You still have your other cards in your hand, while other players, if they had 10 guys on the board, they probably cast 10 different cards to get those 10 guys on the board. So it's a lot easier to rebuild after a board wipe with a token strategy. And the final reason, I think, is that it's just considered a fair strategy. Other opponents aren't going to be singling you out, because even though you're getting really powerful, you're not really messing with them. It's not like unless maybe you're playing red, right? But usually this is a green-white strategy, and you're usually just doing your own thing, building up your army, and not trying to mess with other people's stuff. And it's considered a fair strategy because it's creatures that are attacking. It's not like you're doing an ultimate combo. So examples of an unfair strategy, are somebody who just wins on turn 4 with their Sidisi Undead Vizier deck because they tutored up every single card they need to just go ultimate, usually involving, Ad Nauseam and the Paradox Engine and Aetherflux Reservoir and Yawgmoth's Will, right? Those cards in the Sidisi deck, all right? Absolutely unfair. Attack that guy. All right, but with the token deck, it takes time. You're not going to win on turn 4, turn 5, but the longer the game goes, the almost better it is for you because you got more lands to pump into, pump more mana into your token spells and create a lot of tokens. So, last thing I want to say before getting into it is that I pronounce it Rhys the Redeemed, all right, R-H-Y-S, I think spells Rhys, with a lot of Magic names. I feel like they're just taking normal sounding names and spelling them in an interesting way. They're not trying to create names like Rhys or, Garuk. I pronounce it Garrick, not Garuk, and Rhys is how I pronounce my commander here. So here we go. Also, guys, please like and subscribe because we need those likes here. It helps out a lot. So here's Rhys the Redeemed deck tech. So our commander Rhys is a 1-drop, and that's really rare in Magic. And when I first started playing this deck, I was watching a lot of videos and deck techs, and people were playing him on turn 1, and I thought, oh, that's crazy. He's probably going to be dead by turn 2, or he's just never going to get to do his abilities. He's going to cost more and more to cast every time somebody kills him, and he's going to be a target right away. And so I thought that was crazy. And I saw more and more people doing it. What I noticed is that it didn't matter. They were able to cast him for only 3 mana the second time. They were getting damage with him right away. And also, more importantly, he kind of, drew attention away from the rest of the deck, which is really a powerful deck. This deck I've won many games with. It's a deck I won a game with very recently. And it just the strategy works. You get a bunch of tokens and they win the game. And it's mostly the rest of the deck that usually ends up doing that. Rhys himself is the cherry on the cake. He is the perfect commander for the deck. I mean, I've tried other commanders. Actually, the one I haven't tried is the one that gains you life every time a creature enters the battlefield under your control. That could also be a great strategy. But I really like that Rhys has these first two abilities. These two abilities, and the first ability is the one I normally end up doing. I normally end up making more tokens with them, but the second ability is super powerful. I've only done it a few times, but every time I've done it, it does great things. But again, casting him on turn one, I think is actually a good strategy because it's just fun. Number one, having your commander come out on the first turn, but also it ends up dealing some damage. It's not going to deal commander damage till the end, but just like the rest of your deck, it's really easy to recover if he dies. You just get him back for only 3 mana the next time, and after that it's only 5 mana. And this strategy could go, I feel like this is one of the best commanders to use the new cards, the new Storm cards that came out with the new Commander 2018 decks that care about how many times you've cast the commander during the game. I mean, the green and white Storm cards would go really well in this deck, I think, for that reason. But I don't know, maybe. Anyway, he's a 1/1 legendary elf warrior for 1 hybrid green-white, which means you can play either green or white to cast him. And he's got 2 activated abilities. The first one's you pay 2 of anything in a hybrid green-white, so 3 total to tap him and put a 1/1 green-white elf warrior creature token into play. And his second ability is you can pay 6 total mana and tap him, and for each creature token you control, put a token into play that's a copy of that creature. So let's get into the creatures. And most of these creatures can make creature tokens, or they help the creature tokens in some way. So Oketra the True is the legendary god, 3/6, double strike, indestructible. Can't attack or block unless you control at least 3 other creatures, which in this deck is very easy to get. And you can pay 4 mana with her and create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. If you watched my vampires video, you'll notice that I oftentimes make my own tokens. For the warriors, I made tokens of the warriors from the movie The Warriors. And if you haven't seen that movie, go watch it now. Continuing. Heliod, god of the sun, is a legendary enchantment creature god. 5/6, indestructible. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, Heliod isn't a creature. Each white mana symbol and the mana cost of permanents you control count towards your devotion to white. Other creatures you control have vigilance. And if you pay 4 mana total, you can put a 2/1 white cleric enchantment creature token on the battlefield. So he gives your other creatures vigilance, which is really important because in Commander you have to block. You gotta have blockers in Commander, or if you don't, that's when people attack you and kill you. And also he gives you tokens. Lots of great advantages. So those are my 2 gods in the deck. Tristani's Summoner is 5 of anything and 1 green and 1 white. Pretty expensive, but if you can cast her, even though she's a 1/1, she also gives you a 2/2 white knight, a 3/3 centaur creature, and a 4/4 rhino creature with trample. And that 4/4 rhino with trample is no joke. So especially if you have things that can double your tokens. For example, Rhys's second ability will double those tokens. I mean, this creature is great. But, you do gotta ramp up before you can get to her. Hornet's Nest is pretty cheap to cast on the flip side. Only 2 of anything and 1 green. It's a 0/2 defender, but whenever it's dealt damage, put that many 1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying and death touch onto the battlefield. So perfect blockers, flying, death touch, kill anything that comes at you. And you can get a ton of them. If someone attacks you with a really tall creature, you can get a lot of these and hopefully, again, double them. All of your tokens, I'll just say now, any of these token strategies, you get to double them, and it gets really broken. That's pretty much how you win the game, is doubling your tokens up. But with Rhys himself, I've only used his second ability like 3, maybe 4 times ever. And I've won with this deck a lot. I mean, this deck is fantastic, but often Rhys isn't the deciding factor, it's the rest of the deck, and that's what I think is usually what makes a really powerful deck, is when it doesn't even need its commander to win. So here's a great example. Requiem Angel, 5 of anything and 1 white for a 5/5 flying angel. But the really important thing is, whenever another non-spirit creature you control dies, put a 1/1 white creature token with flying onto the battlefield, a white spirit that is. So even if it's a token, it doesn't say non-token, non-spirit. It's just anything that's not a spirit. So you could have your board full of tokens, you know, and anytime any of them dies, you get a 1/1 white spirit. And I'll just spoil this right now. You know, we do have Doubling Season, Anointed Procession in here, and Parallel Lives. And see, if you have any of those out, whenever one of your non-spirit tokens dies, you know, you're going to get 2 1/1 white spirit creature tokens. I mean, it's just super broken. Mitotic Slime. I love this card. I mean, I love this deck, you know, but this card is just fabulous. It does so much good work. So, 4 of anything and a green for a 4/4 ooze, and when it dies, create 2 2/2 green ooze creature tokens, which have, when this creature dies, create 2 1/1 green ooze creature tokens. So again, if you got Parallel Lives out, or if you can just double your tokens with Rhys' second ability, this guy gets out of control really quick. You know, they kill your guys, and you get more guys, and you get more guys, and you just suddenly have this huge army that they've been trying to destroy the whole time, but it's been to your advantage. Mitotic Slime, such a good card. With so many diversity of tokens, though, of course, in this deck, you really want to have, you know, the tokens. Get the tokens, or at least make the tokens, because you're going to have lots of different types of tokens. And lots of people go with the elf tribal strategy in this deck. I'm like, no way. I'm going with the every kind of token strategy, because that's what I think is the most busted, or the greatest strategy. So here's a Hornet Queen, 4 of anything and 3 green, flying, death touch, 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield, you get 4 1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying and death touch. Fabulous. Sidar Kondo of Jamura doesn't make tokens, but it helps our tokens out. So 2 of anything and a green and a white with flanking. Whenever a creature without flanking blocks this creature, the blocked creature gets -1/-1 till the end of the turn. This can be your commander also. It's a 2/5 human knight, but the important thing here is that creatures your opponents control without flying or reach can't block creatures with power 2 or less. So that's even when they're trying to block another opponent's creatures, they can't block your other opponent's creatures either if those creatures have power 2 or less. And it's really great in this strategy because you get lots of little creatures. So Sidar Kondo just went up in value too because of the whole Defender decks that came out. So pick them up now while you can. One of the greatest token creatures in the whole game, Avenger of Zendikar. 5 of anything and 2 green for a 5/5 elemental. This creature goes in almost any green deck, so I don't care if you're playing tokens or not. Consider adding Avenger of Zendikar to your deck list. When it enters the battlefield, put a 0/1 green plant creature token onto the battlefield for each land you control. Which, if you're playing him for 7 mana, I mean, you possibly have 7 lands right there. So let's just put it at, you know, the lower end of the spectrum. You know, worst case scenario, you cast him, you get 7 plant tokens. And then on your next turn, when a land enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on each plant creature you control. And by the way, that's not just plants created by Avenger of Zendikar. So if you happen to have any other plants, they also get +1/+1 counters. And this card, teamed up with the next card, is definitely a game-winning combo. These guys are like best friends. Craterhoof Behemoth. So Craterhoof pumps up all of our tokens. It's 8 to cast, though, so 5 of anything and 3 green. A 5/5 Haste Beast. When Craterhoof Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X till the end of the turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So if you had 7 plants from Avenger of Zendikar, you have Avenger of Zendikar himself, that's 8 creatures, and Craterhoof Behemoth makes 9 creatures. So you have 9 creatures, which all get +9/+9 and trample. That's game winning right there, and usually you have a lot more creatures with Avenger of Zendikar. So there's a few tutors in this deck. Most often these are the cards I'm tutoring for to just end the game. And you know, even with this little combo here, I mean, people aren't
mad. I mean, people tell me, "Oh, good game. Oh, that was great." It's like, but this is the secret right here. You get these two guys out, you're in really good shape. So I updated this deck just before I made the video because I was looking at it and I realized I was really low on spells that drew me cards. So lots of these cards are new. This doesn't exactly go with the token strategy, but I mean, hey, this guy draws a card. It's a good draw card spell. So 2 of anything and 2 green for a 4/5 dinosaur, Ripjaw Raptor. And whenever Ripjaw Raptor is dealt damage, you draw a card. So he's a great blocker and draws you cards. I'll probably replace him with something else that fits more in the strategy later, but I just had to have more card draw spells. The most powerful thing you can do in Magic is draw more cards. And the next most powerful thing you can do is ramp, get more mana. So, the reason being, of course, that's how you play the game, is you have cards and you're able to cast them. And the reason that drawing cards is more powerful than ramp is of course, that drawing cards, possibly just draws you the ramp or draws you the lands in itself. So I originally built, I looked at my last build of this deck and I only had 5 cards that even drew me more cards. And it's a bit redundant because, in this strategy, there's card advantage already everywhere. Token strategy is pure card advantage in itself. But I really wanted to have things that drew me more cards, hence we got Ripjaw Raptor, and he's a great choice. Maybe I will keep him in, we'll see how he does. He hasn't failed me really before. Smuggler's Copter is another new addition, 2 of anything for an artifact vehicle. It's a 3/3 with crew 1, which means tap any number of creatures you control with total power 1 or more, and this vehicle becomes an artifact creature until the end of the turn. So even if those creatures were just summoned, if they have summoning sickness, you can still tap them to crew a vehicle. Smuggler's Copter has flying, and when it attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So card draw. This one is not new, been in the deck for a while. Worm Coil Engine, 6 of anything for an artifact worm with Death Touch and Lifelink, and when it dies, put a 3/3 colorless worm artifact creature token with Death Touch and a 3/3 colorless worm artifact creature token with Lifelink on the battlefield. So pretty good, but I don't know. I'd actually say it's not as powerful as the other strategies in this deck just because it doesn't make that many tokens. It makes 2 tokens when it dies. Which, even, in 1v1, this is really powerful, but I don't know, if something else comes along, I might actually take Worm Coil out, just because it doesn't go as wide as I like it to, but still a really good card. So, now into the non-creature spells. So, Intangible Virtue is an enchantment for 1 of anything and 1 white, and it says creature tokens you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. So this card right here has won me games before, for sure. You get a bunch of 1/1 tokens, and they all get +1/+1. Now they're all 2/2 tokens, and Vigilance, like I said, is just fabulous for blocking. So we're looking at the anthems here, obviously. We got Eldrazi Monument for 5 of anything. It's an artifact. Creatures you control get +1/+1, have flying, and indestructible. Game-winning stuff there. Downside is, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. If you don't sacrifice Eldrazi Monument, not much of a downside in a token strategy, though. Next, we got True Conviction. Creatures you control have double strike and lifelink. This is an enchantment for 3 of anything and 3 white. Again, very game-winning. Give them all double strike and lifelink. Fabulous. Alright, so next we got a few token doubling cards. We got Second Harvest, and it's an instant spell for 2 of anything and 2 green. For each token you control, put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of that permanent. So it even works with, other types of tokens you might get that aren't creature tokens. Oh, okay. Looks like we're going a little out of order here. So we got Worldly Tutor in the deck. It's an instant. Search your library for a creature card, reveal that card, and shuffle your library, then put that card on top of it. So again, normally we're searching for Craterhoof Behemoth or Avenger of Zendikar, and we have ways to prevent people from countering those spells, even though we have to reveal the card. We'll get into that later, though. Altar of Bone is a sorcery for 1 white and 1 green. Sacrifice a creature to look through your library for a creature card. Put that card into your hand after showing it to all other players, and reshuffle your library afterwards. So, any creature card you get. for sacrificing a creature. Nice little tutor spell. Next we got Teferi's Protection. 2 of anything and 1 white. Until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you have protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out, and then exile Teferi's Protection. So while they're phased out, they're treated as though they don't exist. They phase in before you untap during your untap step. So Teferi's Protection is great with the token strategy because it even protects your tokens. Your tokens come back. It's not like other spells which exile all your creatures and bring those creatures back. Those spells won't protect your tokens, but Teferi's Protection will protect your tokens, which is awesome. Unfortunately, Teferi's Protection will only protect you for 1 turn. You know, if somebody's about to kill you with lethal damage, you know, Teferi's Protection will buy you 1 more turn, but after that, you know, you better have a way to get out of that situation. Beastmaster Ascension. All right, back into the anthems here. Beastmaster Ascension is 2 of anything and 1 green for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you may put a quest counter on Beastmaster Ascension. And as long as Beastmaster Ascension has 7 or more quest counters on it, creatures you control get +5. +5. Broken. So you can put this down when you have 7 creatures out, and then as soon as you attack with those 7 creatures, they instantly get +5/+5. So you can get all of the quest counters you need right on the turn you put Beastmaster's Ascension out, because it gets the quest counters when those creatures attack. You know, other things with quest counters, it's like you get 1 quest counter a turn, but Beastmaster's Ascension, you get all those quest counters very quickly. So very powerful anthem card. I mean, pretty much, I think one of the best anthems in green for sure, especially in token strategies. A must-have in any Rhys deck. Parallel Lives. All right, now into the token doublers again. So 3 of anything in a green. If an effect, meaning absolutely any effect. I love the word effect. It means if absolutely any, for any reason, you would get 1 or more tokens, you get twice that many tokens instead. So even if it's, you know, clue tokens or gold tokens or treasure tokens, you know, or creature tokens, you get twice that many. Doubling Season is the same thing for 4 of anything in a green, and it also has the bonus of if an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, put twice that many counters on that permanent instead. So when your Planeswalker enters the battlefield, it enters with twice that many loyalty counters. If creatures you get +1/+1 counters, they get twice that many +1/+1 counters. If you uptick your Planeswalker, it gets twice that many loyalty counters added onto it. I mean, that's why this card is so much money. Get one now before it goes up in value again. Or up in price, that is. Could never go up in value. It's super up in value. Anointed Procession, again, same thing. If an effect would put 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens. And it's 3 of anything and 1 white for an enchantment. Alright, so this next card is fabulous for our strategy because it helps protect our strategy. People are going to try to counter our spells once they catch on to what we're up to. Especially once you tutor for that Avenger of Zendikar or that Craterhoof Behemoth. Alright, they got that counter spell waiting to go. So you want to have Conqueror's Flail, and you want to have it equipped. So it's 2 of anything for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control, and as long as the Conqueror's Flail is attached to a creature, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. And it's equipped too. And another way to protect our strategy is Abeyance. This only works for target player, I'm pretty sure, unless the text has been changed. But it's 1 of anything and 1 white for an instant. Until the end of turn, target player cannot play instants, interrupts, sorceries, or abilities requiring an activation cost. And you also get to draw a card. So I took Silence out for this one. This one only targets 1 player, but, you know, I'm pretty sure you know which player is about to counter your spells. And, you know, you also get to draw a card, which is, again, something this deck needed more of. So I think it's a great addition. Protects that strategy. They can't play counter spells. Another new addition. Oh no, this one's been in there for a while. Mouth to Feed. So 2 of anything in a green for Mouth, which creates a 3/3 hippo creature token. Hopefully if you've got Doubling Season out, you get 2 3/3 hippo tokens. And if you play Feed, which is 4 of anything in a green, you draw a card for each creature you control with power 3 or greater. And so the feed side you can play when this is in your graveyard. But if something doesn't allow you to cast spells from your graveyard, then too bad, Sonny. Alright, so next into some more creature creating spells. We've got creature token making spells, that is. Secure the Wastes. X and a white for an instant. That's the most important part of this card, is that it's instant speed. You play it at the end of somebody's turn or in response to them attacking you and they don't see it coming. And it just puts X 1/1 white warrior creature tokens onto the battlefield. Again, make your warrior creature tokens based on the movie The Warriors. It's really fun. Arachnogenesis is 2 of anything in a green. For an instant, you put X 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. This card is going up in price because it's a fog, and it also gives you tons of creature tokens for only 3 mana. I mean, this thing, you know, the sky's the limit with this card. It's got tons of value, and all those spiders, who knows, they might be killing all those other creatures, because all damage dealt to them is nullified, so it doesn't matter if the attacking creature's got double strike, whatever, they're all going to take 1 damage from those spiders. Luminarch Ascension, essential for this deck. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if you didn't lose life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Luminarch Ascension. Damage causes loss of life. And for 1 white and a 1 of anything, you may put a 4/4 angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Activate this ability only if Luminarch Ascension has 4 or more quest counters on it. So in Commander, you have 3 opponents and yourself. So at the beginning of each opponent's end step, so 1 turn around the table, this can have 3 quest counters on it. And people always think, well, that means I'm just going to attack you every turn, you know, but it doesn't work like that. I mean, you always got to have blockers. People aren't just going to attack you every turn just because you have this out. They can't afford to most of the time. So unless they destroy it, you're almost always going to get this off, and you're going to be getting some angels really cheap. Great spell. Martial Coup. X and 2 white for a sorcery. Put X 1/1 white soldier tokens onto the battlefield. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. We don't have a lot of single target removal in this deck, I think at all, but we got lots of board wipes, and what's great is we can recover easily from board wipes. So this is a great example. You know, you do a board wipe and you get stuff left over at the end. Devout Invocation, 6 of anything in a white. You know, I haven't had the pleasure of casting this spell yet, so when I finally do, we'll see how good it does. But tap any number of untapped creatures you control. Put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield for each creature tapped this way. Sounds pretty powerful. Launch the Fleet. I have cast multiple times and has won me the game many times. It's 1 white to cast initially, but it also has Strive, which means it costs 1 more to cast for each target beyond the first. So until the end of the turn, any number of target creatures gain whenever this creature attacks. Put a 1/1 white soldier creature token onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So that can get you tons of soldiers. From Beyond. I underestimated this card for a while. I didn't have it in, but as soon as I played it, it created such value for me. Because every single turn you're getting a creature out of it, and that's just fabulous. You know, nothing really beats that. And that creature also can be sacrificed to add mana to your mana pool, which is also just great. So, From Beyond is an enchantment for 3 of anything in a green with Devoid. This card has no color. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token on the battlefield. It has sacrifice this creature to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. And you can pay 1 colorless, or 1 of anything, and 1 green to sacrifice From Beyond, to search your library for an Eldrazi card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. I actually don't have any Eldrazi, but, you know, if I do take out something, I might put Endless One in here, which is, you know, gives you a 10/10 creature token. Here's another very similar card, Awakening Zone. It's another enchantment for 2 of anything in a green. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may create a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature, add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. Again, gets you a creature every single turn and helps you ramp up at the same time. So, great card. This card goes in almost every one of my white decks because it's so game-winning. If you watch my Vampire... what's his name? Edgar Markov video. I even have this in my Edgar Markov deck because it's just such a great white card. So, Elspeth Sun's Champion is the first Planeswalker I'm going to show you. It's 4 of anything and 2 white. and it enters with 4 loyalty counters, unless you have doubling season, in which it'll enter with 8 loyalty counters. And if you plus 1, you put 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. That is just the best, especially with an Anthem. You know, you're getting 3 2/2 soldier creature tokens, or if you got doubling season, you're getting 6 soldier creature tokens. So I mean, no other planeswalker gives you, you know, multiple creatures with the plus ability. So that's why Elspeth is one of the best planeswalkers out there. Get her now while you can. -3, destroy all creatures of power 4 or greater. Also fits fabulously in our token strategy. And for -7, which I've never done yet, but I only just bought doubling season recently, so hopefully we'll be able to do this now. For -7, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +2/+2 and have flying. Elspeth Knight Errant is 2 of anything and 2 white. Enters with 4 loyalty counters. +1 gets you a white soldier token. +1 also can get you creature gets +3/+3 and gains flying. And for -8, you get an emblem with artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and lands you control are indestructible. That's really what I want out of this card, but you know, plus wanting to get a 1/1 white soldier creature token is also not bad at all. Rhys, Lana War's Fury is 3 of anything and 2 green for a planeswalker that enters with 3 loyalty counters. If you +2, you put a 1/1 green elf druid creature token onto the battlefield with tap to add a green mana to your mana pool. Or you can -2 to destroy target artifact or enchantment. Or you can -6 and draw a card for each green creature you control. Garruk Wildspeaker, not Garruk, but Garruk. 2 of anything and 2 green for a planeswalker that enters with 3 loyalty counters, +1 to untap 2 target lands. Fabulous. -1 to put a 3/3 green beast token onto the battlefield. Fabulous. -4, creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trampled until the end of the turn. Fabulous. And I mean, you know, this can go off, you know, this is the turn after you play him. You know, you can do the ultimate. Very game winning. Alright, Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. Cheap planeswalker, only 1 of anything and 2 green to cast. For +1, put a 0/1 green plant creature token on the battlefield. -2, get a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And -7, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of lands you control. So that could be a lot of lands. And this enters with 3 loyalty counters. Alright, now on to some removal spells. This is a new addition to the deck, but I think it's going to do great things. I've actually always wanted to play this card, and I never have. And it's like, it's one of the cards I always put it in, you know, like, oh, I'm going to put this in the deck, and then I'm taking things out. I'm like, oh, Martyr's Bound's going to go. But this time I think I'm going to keep it. So 4 of anything and 2 white for an enchantment. And this is like the equivalent of that black vampire that says whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. The Zendikar, I can't remember the name. But anyway, this says whenever Martyr's Bond or another non-land permanent you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a permanent that shares a card type with it. So, I mean, anybody tries to destroy any of your things, every opponent has to sacrifice something that shares a type with it. Fabulous. Austere Command is 4 of anything and 2 white for the ultimate sorcery, because it has the options. You know, that's what makes cards have card value built into them, is when they have choices. So choose 2, destroy all artifacts, or destroy all enchantments, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, or destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 4 or greater. So I'll very often be choosing the last choice because none of our creature tokens have converted mana cost 4 or greater. Aura Shards is a must-have in this deck. It is expensive, but go buy one. It's 1 of anything, a green and a white. For an enchantment, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Yeah, basically this says your opponents don't get to have artifacts or enchantments. Unless you're being really nice, because it's a May ability. Descend upon the Sinful is 4 of anything and 2 white, and it's a sorcery that says exile all creatures. And if you have Delirium, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield. And Delirium means there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So it's a great board wipe, gets you a creature token, fits the strategy. It sucks that you have to exile all your creatures too, but sometimes that's what you got to do to get rid of that Blightsteel Colossus with hexproof. Or any hexproof indestructibles. Hour of Reckoning, 4 of anything and 3 white, and it has Convoke, so each creature you tap while casting the spell reduces its cost by 1 colorless mana, or 1 mana of that creature's color. So if you have white tokens, they can help pay for the 3 white. And it says destroy all non-token creatures. Obviously a one-sided board wipe there, unless your opponents have tokens too. Okay, so moving right along, we got Phyrexian Rebirth, which is 4 of anything and 2 white for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures, then put an XX colorless horror artifact creature token onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures destroyed this way. So this can get you a huge creature left over after a big board wipe, especially if you had a ton of creatures that died. And, again, can just, board wipes in general can just win you the game. I mean, how often have you played a game and the person who wins is the person who played the board wipe at the right time, you know? And so playing a board wipe and getting a creature left over afterwards is just very, very powerful. Now into some more draw card spells. So Greater Good is one I haven't tried out yet. I don't know how good it's going to be in this deck, considering my creatures generally have low power. But again, I needed to put some draw card spells in there, and I really want to try this one out because I haven't tried it yet. So Greater Good's 2 of anything and 2 green for an enchantment. Says sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. That's the part that doesn't thrill me a lot, is discarding 3 cards, but you know, who knows, maybe those will be 3 cards I really don't need. Harmonize is a great draw card spell for 2 of anything and 2 green. It's a sorcery, and you just draw 3 cards. Excellent. Mentor of the Meek is a creature that lets us draw. It's 2 of anything and a white for a human soldier. That's a 2/2. And whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 mana. If you do, draw a card. So creatures with power 2 or less are going to be entering under our control all the time. So as long as we got extra mana, we'll be drawing extra cards. Rishkar's Expertise is 4 of anything and 2 green for a sorcery. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. You may cast a card with converted mana cost 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So this has sort of that draw cards and, cast a spell for free value on it, and that's just awesome. Hopefully we have a creature with high power out. Even though this is a deck that goes wide, there are a lot of anthems, and there are a lot of creatures in there that have high power in there. Just not necessarily the tokens themselves, but even the tokens can get big. All of the expertise cards, by the way, are something that you should look into if you haven't looked them up yet. Look up all the expertise, Rishkar's Expertise. There's one for every color. I can't remember all their names right now, but they're all just value. They're all multiple abilities on one card. Skull Clamp is 1 of anything for an artifact equipment. It's equip 1. Equipped creature gets +1/-1, and whenever equipped creature dies, you draw 2 cards. This is a must-have card in any token deck, and almost any deck really can use it. It draws you 2 cards when the creature dies. It sticks around so you can eventually draw 2 more cards when another creature dies, and it also helps that creature die by giving it -1 toughness. Mind's Eye is 5 of anything for an artifact that says whenever an opponent draws a card, you may pay 1, and if you do, you draw a card. Commander's Sphere is kind of what's leading us into the ramp, so it also draws you a card, though, if you want it to. So 3 of anything for an artifact, which taps to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity, and you can sacrifice it to draw a card. What's great is you don't have to tap it to sacrifice it, so you can tap it for mana and then sacrifice it, leaving the floating mana up to possibly help cast the next spell that you draw. Thran Dynamo is 4 of anything for an artifact, which taps for 3 colorless mana. Get it 1. Caged Sun is 6 of anything for an artifact. As it enters the battlefield, choose a color. Creatures of the chosen color get +1/+1. And whenever any land's ability adds 1 or more mana of the chosen color to my mana pool, I may add 1 additional mana of that color to my mana pool. So very powerful. In any deck, I'd say that's 2 or 1 color deck. If you're 3 colors, I don't know if you'd put this in your deck. But yeah, if you're only 2 colors, I think it's a great card. Especially if you're just 1 color. Mirari's Wake is 3 of anything and a white and a green. And it's an enchantment that gives creatures I control +1/+1. And whenever I tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to my mana pool of any type that land produced. So it has to be the same color that the land made. Or if the land happened to make 2 colors, you could choose one of those 2 colors to make. Cultivate is a sorcery for 2 of anything and a green. Says search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, and put 1 onto the battlefield tapped and another into your hand, then shuffle your library. The other card that's the exact same thing is called Kodama's Reach, and they're both excellent cards, great additions for any green deck. Harvest Season is 2 of anything and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of tapped creatures you control, and put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So if you have a lot of tokens that just attacked, this can get you a lot of lands. Growing Rites of Itlamok is 2 of anything and a green for a legendary enchantment, and it's legendary for a good reason. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. That first ability, by the way, is one that people miss a lot of the time, so don't forget to do it. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, you transform Growing Rites of Itlamok, and it transforms into Itlamok, Cradle of the Sun, which is a legendary land, and you can tap it for a green mana, or you can tap it to add a green mana to your mana pool for each creature you control. And because this also has the ability to just tap for 1 green mana, it kind of makes it even better than Gaia's Cradle. Though I would love to add Gaia's Cradle to the deck. I don't got one. But definitely a fabulous ramp card, Itlamok, Cradle of the Sun. Skyshroud Claim is 3 of anything and a green for a sorcery that says search your library for up to 2 forests, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So even if it's a half forest, half plains, it doesn't have to be a basic forest. That's the really powerful thing here. Emerald Medallion is 2 of anything for an artifact that says green spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. All of the medallion artifacts are very powerful, and they should basically be in any deck that's 3 or less colors, maybe. I mean, I'd really say 2 or less colors. If you're playing 3 colors, they're kind of iffy. But if you're only playing 2 colors, get the medallions. They make every spell you cast of that color 1 less, which can add tons of value, because if you cast 4 spells that turn that are that color, you've just essentially added 4 mana to your mana pool with this card. So it's not just like it's just adding 1 mana to your mana pool. It adds tons of value. Soul Ring, Pearl Medallion, the white version. White spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, so 2 to cast artifact there as well. Next we got a Selesnya Signet, 2 of anything for an artifact, and then you can pay 1 mana and tap it to add both a white and a green to your mana pool, so a mana fixing artifact. And then next we got the lands. So there are actually only 35 lands in this deck, which is more than there were before, which surprised me. I kind of went off of, when I originally built the deck, I know I kind of built it based on another YouTube channel's deck, which, I mean, this guy only had like 28 lands in the deck. And he, but he made up for it with tons of artifacts and ramp spells, so that's what I figured I'd do. And last I looked at it, I only had 32 lands, so we had 3 more lands added, making 35. So, starting with Boseiju, who Seltzer's All, is a legendary land. It comes into play tapped, and you can tap it and pay 2 life to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. But if that mana is spent to cast an instant or sorcery spell, that spell can't be countered by spells or abilities. So, great way to cast your token spells. Reliquary Tower says you have no maximum hand size, and it taps to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. Great in literally any deck. protects your hand against Djinn attacks. Blighted Step. Taps to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, or you can pay 3 of anything in a white to tap it and sacrifice it, and then you gain 2 life for each creature you control. So just a way to gain some life, just in case, you know, you're about to lose. Secluded Step was a recent add-in. I was surprised I didn't have it in earlier. You should have the cycling lands in basically any deck strategy. So it enters the play tapped, it adds a white mana to your mana pool, but you can cycle it, which means if it's in your hand, you can pay a white, discard it, and then draw it. So if you're mana flooded, meaning you already have too many lands and you draw this, you can exchange it for another card. So great draw ability. So I got Secluded Step, I got Desert of the True, and I got Slippery Karst as my 3 cycling lands. Horizon Canopy, I was lucky enough to draw from a booster pack. Really expensive card, though. I don't know why. I mean, it's not even that broken. I just don't get it. Why is this card so expensive? You gotta pay 1 life to add a mana to your mana pool. I just hate that ability. But you can pay 1 mana and sacrifice it to draw a card. I mean, I guess that's something you don't find a lot, you know? But, I mean, what about Slippery Karst? I just showed you 3 lands that basically, you know, you sacrifice to draw, and those are like 50 cents at most, and Horizon Canopy is like $50 or more right now. I don't even know. So really strange. I kind of don't get it. I mean, it is better than the others. Is it that much better? I mean, you got to pay a life every time you add mana to your mana pool. How many times have you lost a game just with 2 life, you know, with 3 life? I mean, I think the cards that gain you life are overestimated. And yep, I'm running this card in my deck because it does things. So I'm a hypocrite, I guess. No, that's a good card. All I'm saying is it's not worth $50. It's not worth $100. I don't know how much it is right now. It's worth a lot of money. Get one while you can. Grasslands is a land that enters tapped, and you can sacrifice it and you can tap it and sacrifice it to search your library for a forest or plains and put it on the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. So it's kind of like the you know, the fetch lands, but it doesn't ping you. Though it takes an extra turn to pull it off, and everything enters the battlefield. Well, this enters the battlefield tapped. Yeah, that's why it takes an extra turn. Sungrass Prairie. It's kind of like a signet land card, so it's a land where you can pay 1 and tap it to add both a green and white to your mana pool. So a mana fixing land. These little mana fixing lands are great. Get them for any deck you can. Selesnya Sanctuary enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, return a land you control to its owner's hand, and you can tap it for both a green and a white mana. So when you play this, be sure to float the mana of the land that you're returning to your hand, and make sure that land is a land that's going to enter the battlefield again untapped. When you get these lands in your opening hand, by the way, don't count them as a land. Unless you have tons of other lands in your opening hand, you know, you don't want to keep an opening hand with just a bounce land, as these are called, and 1 other land, or a bounce land and 2 other lands. I mean, you know, these are greater later in the game. If you have 4 other lands in this, or 3 other lands in this, then, you know, okay. But if you only have 2 other lands in this, it's pretty risky to keep that hand. Sunpetal Grove enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest or a plains, and adds a green or a white to your mana pool. Warden Reef of the Vast Wood enters the battlefield tapped. It taps to add a green to your mana pool, or you can tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield this turn. So with our token strategy, that could be a lot of green creatures. Great card, goes in almost any green deck. Canopy Vista enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands, and it is a forest plains, so you can search for this card with Sky Shroud's Claim, or anything that lets you search up a forest or a plains. Bountiful Promenade enters the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents, and it adds a green or a white. So this came out from the Battle Bond set. These are great lands to get. Croson Verge enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add a colorless, or you can pay 2 mana and tap it to sacrifice it, search your library for a forest card and a plains card, and put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. This card is amazing. This card should be worth $50. I mean, this card doesn't even exist in other color combinations. You know, there aren't any other color combinations that do this on a land, you know, and this one, you know, this one can just add you mana if you're already mana flooded and you don't need the second ability. It doesn't pay, you know, pay 1 life to add the mana to your mana pool. So, geez, I think this one is actually much better than the Horizon Canopy. Temple of Plenty enters tapped, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 1. You can pay a green or a white. And then we got 9 forests and 10 plains. And that is the deck. So, if you like this deck and you want to see more videos, please like the video, subscribe, and that's it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what maybe draw card spells I should put in here, things that you would do differently, and suggestions for other videos are totally welcome. So until next time, take care, take it easy.